Hello and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rich Longo, and I'll be your host for another Flycast Partners webinar. Today's webinar is on endpoint management. Michael is an experienced pre-sales senior solutions consultant with extensive experience in collaborating with clients on IT strategies, and he's a proven leader that is a results-driven, motivated professional with extensive experience in spearheading the management, design, development, implementation, and testing of IT solutions. Recognized leader in effectively translating a major business objectives into high-impact technical solutions, commitment to helping organizations achieve maximum benefit from their IT investment through team leadership, strategy execution, and commitment to quality. He has over 18 years in the IT world, reputation for dedicated teamwork, high energy work ethic, and commitment to customer service. Adept in analyzing customer needs and collaborating effectively with clients, assessing needs and resolving issues, conscientious and dependable, and completing projects with the appropriate time frame. Boy, that was a mouthful, Michael. And before we get started on your presentation, let me introduce Flycast Partners. We are here to deliver a seriously amazing IT experience founded and staffed by personnel that have many years of experience in the IT space. We took the best ideas from these collective experiences and added the best components necessary to grow and become a leading value-added reseller in the North American IT market. We offer best-in-class implementation services and training in ITSM, ITAM, ITOM, ESM, and workload automation spaces using nothing but ITIL best practice. Our professional services can easily scale up or down to meet the IT needs of any customer, regardless of size, complexity, or budgetary restrictions. We offer implementation services both on-site and remote, as well as training to reinforce your organization's long-term IT success. Our ongoing remote administration support service offerings will enable you to focus on those normal day-to-day operations, saving you both precious time and money. I encourage you to reach out to us directly at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Or visit our website at www.flycastpartners.com. As you can see, this is just one of many presentations that we do here at Flycast Partners. I encourage you to visit our website and check out some of the additional webinars that we offer, some of the additional products that we offer, and check out data sheets and white papers and any other information that you would like to share with your fellow coworkers. So without further delay, I'm going to go ahead and turn this presentation over to the star of the hour, Mr. Michael Durant. Michael, you have control.
Well, thank you, Rich. I must say you sound a lot better today than our last demonstration. It's glad to see that you've gotten better. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Let me know when you can see that.
I can see the island with the boat.
So let's get started here today. So good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for joining for another presentation. I'm Michael Durant, your friendly neighborhood sales engineer with Flycast. And today we're going to be speaking about a different topic, one of which is part of the Avanti portfolio, one of which I've used as a customer for many years. So obviously in today's webinar, we have about 45 minutes. We're going to leave some time as well for questions. So, you know, this product is very comprehensive in managing your endpoint. So we encourage you to reach out for a more in-depth demonstration tailored to your specific needs. I will be highlighting some specific areas within some topics I've experienced myself, and I know some of you can probably attest to. So I have some slides I'm going to go through to let you know who's actually presenting, what the vendor, a little background on the vendor. So Avanti, double check here. Rich, you guys see my screen okay?
I see it. It looks great. It goes down the timeline of Avanti and where they've come from. Perfect.
All right. Just wanted to make sure because I know sometimes WebEx could be a bit on a delay. So Avanti, again, I worked for them when they were landed. They were established in '85. They're privately owned. Their headquarters are still in Salt Lake City. I've visited there many times. A very large employee base has probably grown since this slide, and they're global. Very large customer base as well, and including a partner ecosystem. We happen to be Partner of the Year for 2018, so pretty proud of that. And ever since I've worked with Landes before they became Avanti, I've been able to witness some of these acquisitions. So let's talk about those for a bit so we can set the stage, because what Avanti is providing through its solutions is that unified IT approach. And when you look at this timeline, which one of these I've actually seen the use of when it was acquired in 2012, when you look at this timeline, you see that there's also things like Shavlik. So as part of this solution I'm showing you today, we're going to be using the Shavlik engine and content to be able to manage your patch environment and manage that from an automation standpoint. And there are other areas like Let Mobile that we use for the MDM, and also extraction, which allows you to provide business intelligence dashboards and reporting so you can see results as you automate projects for things like maybe a Windows phased rollout upgrade across your environment, and also bring in data elements that may not necessarily be an Avanti product. So we'll talk about those specific areas today. So let's go ahead and continue with these specific areas. So with that DNA slide you just looked at, where you saw all of those acquisitions, a lot of things have been organically enhanced as well. So with the acquisitions, what Avanti has done is created these capabilities, these pillars of capabilities. We'll be looking at the unified endpoint management today, but these pillars, these solutions are all integrated. They're available in the cloud and on-premise, and also in a hybrid type setup. There are workflows that talk between them, process automations that allow you to work in specific areas and hand off information through those integrations. And with all of these platforms integrated, you can also roll into a business intelligence dashboard using extraction to be able to see how things are working holistically across your IT department. All right, so let's get into what we are focusing on today. So challenges for overcoming the status quo, right? When you talk about an inventory management system, there are things around knowing your environment, right? Some are using spreadsheets, that's pretty static. Some are using tools that are, limited information. What you're going to see today is a solution that provides in-depth information on those endpoints, allowing you to secure them and, understand where they are, who's using them, and what's actually running on them. User productivity, all of this, is very important when it comes to that user, productivity. If you don't have or you don't know what's in your environment, when a user calls in, things like, mean time to resolve within that particular issue that's happening can take a longer time, because you have to, then try to find out what the user has, and, also you have to maintain that environment. So how can you maintain that environment if you don't know what you have, especially, in today's security breaches and requirements? There's more of an in-depth requirement that comes back based on those compliance requirements. Obviously security teams, wanting to know, what you have on those devices. It's no longer simply, hey, tell me what you have. We need to know what's on those devices. What environments are they running on? Where are they? Who's using them, and why are they using them? Obviously, to handle a lot of this can be, resource intensive, a lot of manual boots on the ground, touching of machines, when it comes to things like OS provisioning, patching, there's this sort of scramble to manually touch a machine. And overall is that visibility, in understanding what, again, what you have. What is it costing me? What the solution is going to show you today is ways in which you can make IT look better, providing sort of that, consolidated, comprehensive endpoint management approach to give that holistic, control from, point to point. It makes IT operate better. Okay, so from within a request, a technician can reach out to a specific endpoint wherever it is to offer assistance. It obviously makes IT a lot more strategic. So obviously, people are working a lot different today. It's evolving, and the way in which we need to manage them is also evolving. IT in many organizations and industries are becoming more flexible, with solutions, should be able to help them manage that flexibility. With all of those variables, and speaking of those variables, what are some of those variables? So, in the old days, we had users with, maybe a desktop, and, an IT support representative walked over to that desktop. They were maybe more of a LAN network and not dispersed MPLSs or distributed networks. But now, we have users with desktops, laptops, smartphones. They work in the office, they work remotely. Some companies allow, BYOD, bring your own devices. There's also that, mobile management, so you can have that sort of hybrid setup. So within the solutions that you're going to be looking at today, we'll look at ways in which you can consolidate from one platform on one console to manage across from more of a user type focus. So let's talk a little bit about the traditional endpoint management systems. You have the legacy setup where you have the client management system, where and a mobile management system, maybe a separate system for managing a different type of OS like Apple. These are separate workflows, right? Separate products. They operate independently, and although you can go to the next level where in a co-management state, there's still a little heavy lifting of integrating those platforms. And then there's that to manage, and also that point of failure. Well, today we're going to look at that unified endpoint management system, a system that provides a holistic from a one console type view, and it manages many different platforms: Windows, Android, Macs, iOS, Linux, servers, workstations. So you'll get a demonstration of a view into some of the functions that I've used as an administrator of this product, and sort of a taste of some of the things that this solution can actually provide. So stuff happens, right? Devices fail, patches break, security breaches, user breaks things. What are some of the things you as a technician needs to be able to do? You need to have the ability to do things like remote control and remote diagnose what's happening, right? Now, what are the things that you can do, to help reduce when these things happen? Maybe something around automation. Well, with this solution today, you would see ways in which we can automate the deployment of software. We can provide software distribution services, not only from a MSI standpoint and executable standpoint, but you can be, very optional in terms of things like maybe a virtual application for an older version of application that needs to run in a new environment. You can, create those types of deployments, scripting deployments, PowerShell deployments. So many different options.
Michael, I've lost your audio. Check your audio.
Can you hear me?
I can now. Got you now.
You can now? Okay, perfect. Can you still see my screen?
Really? Yeah, we can see your screen. I just lost your audio temporarily.
Okay. All right. So sorry about that. Maybe a little WebEx. All right. So let's continue. That stuff happens. Obviously, within organizations today, you have the challenges around, re-imaging systems, being able to, remotely wipe them. Devices can go, rogue. So being able to reach them remotely and execute specific functions, maybe secure them from a patch standpoint. These are all the things that organizations need to do today to be efficient in delivering that functionality to secure the environments they're providing for their end users. All right, so in endpoint management, you'll be able to discover and inventory your endpoints, things like Windows devices, servers, mobile devices, Linux devices, Mac devices. You'll also be able to do software distribution. You'll also be able to do things like provisioning. So when we talk about provisioning, the old ways of doing a lot of that is around maybe a bloated type image. What this system allows you to do is decouple that, where you can provide, an operating system, and then with hardware independent imaging, you can then layer things like, your hardware devices based on the creation of the templates you use for provisioning your provisioning needs. Reporting and analytics, we talked about extraction. The system also has built-in reports and dashboards, so you can utilize that. But looking at from a holistic view, including things like maybe a service management detail, patch management detail, change management, all correlate into analytics that your bosses, directors, CIOs would need to see to understand how IT is operating. We can provide those rich data dashboards for you using extraction or within the tool. We'll also look at remote control capabilities. So remote control can be configured in multiple layers. So again, it's not just this remote control of one type. You would see, the ability to do different controls against that. Power management, again, you can do things like, bring machines online at a specific time to help, offset costs around systems running maybe in a school environment, a lab environment. You can shut them down and turn them on at specific times. And again, all rolled into this unified endpoint management system is a enterprise mobile management system as well for managing those, mobile devices like Androids and iOS devices that, we all know that users carry today. And again, this is all what you would see in the demonstration today is all of those functions are rolled into one console, same workflow, fully integrated to, additional systems. So the discovery. So we do agentless, passive, active discovery. We also do network trace mapping, data normalization and data normalization and reconciliation of multiple data sources. Wow, that was a bit of a tongue tie there. B2B connectors. All of these areas that you see here can come into an important part when you're managing your endpoints. Understanding what's being purchased. Having that readily available connected to your preferred vendors so you can bring things in and have them prepared prior to the devices showing up. So you can use that within maybe automations to maybe kick off specific deployments to that device. The system also offers extensive APIs, and so you can connect into additional systems, like Tableau if you needed to, outside of our extraction, if that's something you have on site already. We talked about remote control. We'll look at that in the demonstration today. Discovery and inventory. A couple of things that you need to have and some of the benefits, right? So discover all of your devices that you're managing on your network. So you gain control, complete control of what operating systems you have, what devices you have, within your environment from a single solution. So you would see that today. You also get to understand what devices are on your network at any given moment. Avanti uses a client self-electing platform technology that is, state of the art. So, you would see, I'll point out some of those areas today because these can add to your security levels and understanding of being proactive in understanding and what comes on your network. So you also get to know everything about your devices, right, through that discovery and inventory. And here's some examples of what you'll be seeing today. So this is the console showing you a holistic view of, your inventory, some tool sets that we'll be using, and we'll actually drill into that product in a little while. So speaking of inventory, you get an in-depth view. So there's, as I mentioned, there's passive and active scans, and you can also do agentless and agent scans. And the difference there is, if you're looking to do a light inventory reading of a device, or if you wanted to go more in depth and control and provide policies against that device, you'll be able to, do that through deploying an agent. You also get network dependency and service mapping. So, the need there is to kind of know what everything is on a subnet. You'll see some examples today of, our self-electing subnet services in which the Avanti system allows you to monitor specific subnets using, members of that subnet that they manage to report back to you of, different systems coming online so you can see, what changes that has been made. You can quickly identify problems within your subnets, and provide the latest network configuration data to your service management teams. What that looks like in the product, you'd see a quick example of that is where, as things connect to routers and then within those subnets, we can then provide, sort of that mapping view where you can hand that off to things like your CMDB, so they can match those to things like services, service elements, and dependencies within the environment. BDP connectors, we talked about that, what is, the need there to, again, consolidate that data, right, from many different resources. You might have SCCM, EPM, or other type of data sources that, you may need to connect to. You get to enrich this data from third-party, sources. This can be your preferred vendors. So you don't have to manually, try to bring that information in and do an import of some sort. You can have this automatically done on the back end. You'll be able to trace, source quality and usefulness using these connectors, right? So just some examples, and I know we need to get into this demonstration. We're getting a little low on time, so I'll move to this. So again, data normalization and reconciliation. When you bring in or you scan your endpoints, typically you'll be bringing in lots of, we call it garbage, lots of information where, you would see where developers have named different applications based on, a specific error within that application. And that application could be the same application, but it's, represented with different names. So within this tool, you'll have the ability to do the normalization of that so you can provide, rich information and useful information for your C-levels, your asset managers, and even from a security standpoint to actually knowing what you have within your environment. So here's an example of, again, a resource that will be available to you. The Avanti Cloud, what Avanti is doing is providing a cloud environment, allowing you to connect a lot of these solutions so that you can use these connectors, those pre-built connectors, to bring in those necessary things like those BDP connectors that I talked about a while ago. And again, the extensive APIs, we talked about being able to connect out to, different disparate systems that you may need to utilize that you have in your environment already, like Tableau. But keep in mind, you do get the extraction solution as part of the purchase with any of the Avanti solutions in its portfolio. We talked about remote control, and couple of things I want to point out. A lot of the areas within this solution, obviously, you would have an operational view where, technicians will be carrying out specific functions by triggering tasks or, something that manually has to be done today. But out of the box, this solution provides automation processes where you can create rollout projects. So something like maybe patch, where you can have your test environment, maybe a beta environment and a production environment, where, you can have those automatically rolled out and, take away a lot of that mundane task of touching those specific machines. Again, this is multi-platform support. And what this allows is from an end user standpoint, you can offer things like, a specific user environment, sort of a self-service portal. So end users can take advantage of things that you don't have to necessarily chase them down for. These can be unique things within your environment that you need to publish so the end user can, see information on, maybe deploy software. We'll take a look at a couple of those examples today. And what this all rolls up to is that extraction solution that I mentioned. So again, having visibility, right? Being able to see things like my devices from a holistic view, what operating systems I have in my environment, what computer OSs are maybe at risk, looking at maybe a desktop dashboard, what the statuses of those desktops are, things that need to be rebooted, and having, again, that holistic view that refreshes over time. And lastly, an executive dashboard, providing that, again, that dashboard that's relevant to them, things around your patches, your antivirus arena. I remember working in as an admin and being asked to do some of that with other tools and having to, work with things like, SQL queries and different elements to get that type of dashboard to be presented, and it took multiple systems. Well, today you can use the extraction dashboard to be able to export a lot of that information. So in summary, we'll look at automated discovery and reporting of hardware and software assets, automated software packaging and deployment, patching process. We'll take a look at the OS migration, hardware refresh, break, fix, restore type functionality that's in the system, integrated tools for teams and managing devices for scopes, so where you can allocate specific devices per team, and integrated tools for your security environment, for maybe things like antivirus. If you have an antivirus solution within your environment, we can help you manage that from this solution. So let's get into the product. So we have about maybe 20 minutes to kind of run over that system. Just want to do a quick check here.
At least 20 minutes. Yeah, at least 20 minutes there, Michael. Sorry to interrupt you, but I want to make sure that, folks, if you have questions, please type those in our Q&A section of this WebEx so I can read them off to Michael. Michael would love to answer as many questions as possible in the time allocated. So send me your questions in the Q&A section of this WebEx, and I'll let you take it from here, Michael.
Perfect. So just a quick check. Are you seeing my screen okay?
Screen looks great. Looks fantastic.
Perfect. So this view brings back a lot of memories. This was my daily function in coming into looking at my operations on a daily basis. So what you're looking at here is the Unified Endpoint Manager's console. This console can be run, as a remote console. It can be run on a virtual system. It can be run on a Windows desktop. Within this console, you'd see a couple of things. On the left is a toolbox, and these are the many things that I talked about when we started the demonstration. Obviously, when we started the WebEx, obviously to go through each of these, as you can tell, if there are any specific areas that you are interested in, please feel free to type in questions there. We can, schedule one-off demos to go in depth in those specific areas. But for today's webinar, I'm going to give you an overview of what you do for getting started with a system of this type. So once the system is installed and set up with your necessary services, and you log in. In this view, you're seeing again the tools, and there are a couple of tools that I've opened, and they will come down here in different tabs where I can scroll through them, and we'll go through what each of these mean in terms of getting started. Up at the top here, before we go through those, you see I have a network view. Once we go through doing things like scanning your environment, adding agents to your environment, then you can use these pre-built queries to sort of look at the focus points that's relevant to you, or maybe a holistic view. Once we bring a lot of those things in, then you can start, presenting controls on these devices. So to get started, one of the things that you're going to want to do is obviously to discover devices. So here I have an unmanaged device discovery in which I can do what we call a ping sweep, where I can set up specific subnets with specific options, things like, OS fingerprinting, if I want to do SNMP scanning in that particular environment. Do I want to discover any, systems that may have had Landes installed? Do I want to look at an NT domain, maybe an LDAP environment within, a specific IP range? I can go ahead and do that, and then I can schedule this scan. So what you would see today is within every parameter of this tool, when I create an action, I can schedule it and trigger that scheduled task at any time, and even based on a specific condition. So once this runs and we go through, then we'll start getting elements back into these specific areas. And you see here, I brought back a couple of elements, some of which I started working on. So you see them above where they're, I started targeting them to deploy agents to them. But to give you an example of how that works, once I have my scanned environment and I have elements within that scanned environment, I will then start looking at deploying that agent. So I'll go over to my agent configuration, and as you see here, an example of all the different flavors that we offer. Each of these agents are collections of controls, policies, all the way down to, how you deploy patches for a specific environment. How do you connect to that environment? So, you can edit this particular, any of these agent settings and go through and set up those particular parameters. One of those parameters that I pointed out in the slide deck today is that remote control policy. So that remote control policy can have different settings for, maybe your HR department. Someone has to be attending, sitting in front of that machine before tech is allowed in. So you can set different policies, indicators, what type of connection you're going to allow, what actions you're going to allow, how the end user is going to be indicated when you connect, what are the permissions you're going to allow for that. So you can get very granular in how you configure those agent settings, and that's just one of the examples. When you configure that agent and you're ready to deploy, you simply right-click and you can, create a self-contained agent client installation where maybe put that in an image. So when an image deploys, the system will get notified and it will be identified uniquely based on, those unique identifiers. But for this example, I'm going to schedule the deployment of that agent. And to show you what actions that you have once you've scanned your environment and you've configured an agent, you can then go back to the unmanaged devices and you can drag those devices. So I'll just hold this and drag that into a scheduled agent deployment that I just created. Now keep in mind that agent deployment could be something that you schedule for a different time. It can be scheduled against a query. We'll talk about what those queries are in a second. Once you have that scheduled agent, you can see I have a couple in here. I've just dragged, a couple machines in here. So you can see I can monitor those from all of the devices that are in that deployment task, that schedule, what is active, what is pending, did anything succeed, and did anything fail. So you can go ahead and trigger this specific deployment, to start based on those particular parameters. So I can go ahead and close this. So once I have that agent deployment, go ahead. Did you lose me again?
We do. We have a couple of questions. Now, I didn't lose you again, and I don't know if this might not be the appropriate time, but one of the questions, Robert wants to know, can it discover patch levels?
Yes. Yes, it can.
Okay. That's one
Yep,
answer.
yep.
And then our friends from the city of Seattle want to know, can you discuss how, at the end, if you'll discuss how endpoint management and the automation product operate together, because they already run ISM and they want to know how those two would work.
Brilliant question. I love it. It's actually what I'm setting up in my environment right now. So yeah, let me go ahead and open up some of those things that based on what those questions were. So we're going to do some OS provisioning as well, and we'll look at packages, and there was some questions around patch, right? So we'll look at the security compliance. Exit that. All right, so let's continue on the path here. We'll get to those specific elements that we just talked about there a little while ago. So we've scheduled some agents. You know, they've come back successful. They've been deployed. And now, as an administrator, I can do a couple of things to have visibility into those agents. So first of all, we talked about that network map. So here's, you know, obviously my environment that shows my router and a couple of devices hanging off of it. Within large organizations, you'd have that multi-layer view as well. Once I have those devices in a management state, I can then start looking at these pre-configured queries. So, you know, I can say, look at all my devices. So here is a listing of all the devices, you know, around what type of device it is, you know, what OS is on there. And all of these columns could be configured in a different view manner using our column set configuration. So for different groups, you can have different visibility into what you're managing. Speaking of which, you know, visibility into what you're managing, notice I have a query here that says my devices. So this is where I can maybe go look at all my devices and grab something, do a search against a specific device I'm looking for, and I can grab that and pull it into my devices query so that when I need to manage those devices, I can quickly get to them. And speaking of managing those devices, once those devices are in a management state, you would notice there are icons on them, and these represent specific things. So there's a little remote control icon here. It tells me when I click on that remote control is available for this device. There's also, you know, show me a little binoculars there. That's telling me that this device is being inventoried. And then there's also a little shield icon there, which can depict things like change based on the vulnerabilities against this device. To give you an example of some of the actions that you can take, so maybe I want to just look at inventory for this device. So I can click on that inventory action, and what it's going to do is bring back that holistic view on that device for me. And when I say that, what I mean is we go really in depth. So, you know, things like your LDAP integration, so we can see all of the, you know, the user information on this machine. We can also look at, you know, the users and groups on this, local users and groups on this machine to see the memberships of each specific area. We can also go down to things like maybe, you know, programs, your software, add and remove programs, what's on this device. So again, as you can tell, you get a really in-depth view as to, you know, how we inventory these devices. Another action that you can take, you can also go down to that, you know, summary of reports. So you can look at all the vulnerabilities detected but not patched against this particular computer. So I can run that report, bring back some information on that, if there are any specific things that I need to have on that, if there are any vulnerabilities. That happens to be one of my demo devices, so I keep it up to date, so it looks pretty good here. I can save this report. So that's, you know, again, you can do that on multiple machines as well. So in terms of this machine, some of the other things that we can do, we talked about, is maybe remote control in this machine. So there's remote control actions in here where I can simply, you know, select remote control function, and then I get control of this system. And control of this system can be done in many ways. Let's say, for example, I'm having an issue with the connectivity type. Maybe the person is on a Wi-Fi, a MiFi, sorry, and it's, you know, it's a low-speed connection. I can optimize that where it refreshes into a more of a grayscale. It takes away that you know, that desktop-type view, and things will operate a lot quicker for me. Some of the tools that I can use is maybe, you know, illustrating things on, you know, the desktop for the end user. So I can say, hey, I need you to click on this particular option. And when I scroll over to that machine, you can see I actually have that machine within my environment, and you see I'm pointing to this particular environment, this particular action right here. And the reason why I'm pointing to that action is one of the topics we talked about earlier. So again, from an end user standpoint, as I'm helping that end user, we can also publish things for that end user. So here's an example of when I'm managing that end user through the agent that gets deployed from the endpoint manager. We can provide an end user workspace, which allows us to do things like provide software deployment options for them in which they can add favorites to. So, as they move from machine to machine and they log in, they can have access to these software options here and simply go ahead and deploy them as needed. There are other options that they can have here. So you can provide documents from here, links, maybe featured items from a policy standpoint in different categories as well. You can also categorize them here. So that's one of the options that you can do in terms of managing a device, specifically from the device. There were some questions around patching. So here's my patch module. Again, from a holistic view, we can see things around what my scan rates are, what my inventory changes are, recent scans by OSs, patches installed, maybe a vulnerability view. I can see things around what machines are missing patches, from a vulnerability dashboard. I can even drill into those specific machines to see a history on that machine, to see, what missing patches are on that machine. And on each of these patches, we can look at the properties of them to get more in detail. But what I'll do is encourage maybe a one-off demonstration of a more in-depth view for patch, so we can give you a more holistic view of that. What I showed you earlier from an end-user standpoint is where we have the ability to deploy software. So in my distribution module in one of my tool sets, I can create multiple distribution package types for different OSs as well, whether it's mobile, Macintosh, Windows. We're not limited to just maybe, as I mentioned, an MSI or an executable. We can deploy batch files, actions, PowerShell scripts, virtual applications. So quite a bit of options that you have here to deploy to different endpoints. When you create your packages, simply as I did when I deployed an agent, I can schedule a deployment of this particular package. So I can say go ahead and schedule a deployment of that package. And then at any time for that schedule option, I can grab a device or two devices and drop it into that action and start that action. But what you saw earlier is where I decided to deploy this particular application using the unified workspace, where I can publish that. And what this deployment allows me to do is configure that. So here's that portal settings where, I can leave off where it just runs automatically, or I can publish it where it displays in that portal that you saw earlier. And I can also display it as in different, again, if I'm using categories or if, I wanted to go into a specific area as an optional function that user can take advantage of. So in terms of your patches, as I mentioned, we manage, Linux, Macs, Windows environments. Within your Windows environment, we also do hardware-independent imaging, so we can manage, different vendor types, different models. An example of that would be, maybe your Dell cabs, where you can simply say, if I'm managing a specific latitude type, I can select that as the drivers that I would want to download for that. So when I image, you can have within your OS template to be able to call on that repository to get those updated drivers and not having to bake them into your OS package. So we are at 12:45 on this particular time. We're at 2:45. I know we wanted to leave some time for questioning. So I would open up for any questions that came in. Again, I encourage you, as you can tell, there are lots of functions within the solution, but I encourage you to, and I can go ahead and answer a couple of those questions prior to the others that are coming in that you told me about before. Rich, if you'd like.
Yeah, I think that the patch one, you addressed that a little bit, and I think that it might be a better play is if we do an actual demo for them. So, Robert, if you want to reach out to me directly at rich.longo@flycastpartners.com, we'd be more than happy to help you out in getting the answers you need on that. Next questions we had is, let me pull this up. John wants to know, what can you do for Android and iOS phones?
So we do have an MDM module, so we can manage those. Obviously, with those environments, especially Apple, you have to do an enrollment for that. So we can do that enrollment directly from here, where you can manage those particular devices using what we have as a called a cloud service appliance, because more than likely those devices will be, outside of that, of your network a lot of the times. But what that cloud service appliance allows us to do is be able to talk to those devices securely while they're in the wild, out on the internet, and be able to patch them and manage them just as you've seen me managing the inventory from a Windows standpoint for your environment.
Okay, and I think you answered John's question, and I think that Steve, for the city of Seattle, if we weren't able to answer your question about the endpoint management automation product operating together based on what you already have with ISM, please reach out to me as well. We'd love to go ahead and help you out with that and show you, real-world applications on that. And with that, I don't see any other questions coming in right now, Michael.
So actually, Rich, I'll address that question really quick because it's a path I'm actually going along right now. So and then you can reach out to us for more in depth, and maybe I can have a one-off conversation with you on that. But with the automation server, obviously you're creating runbooks. Those runbooks are part of the ISM workflow. So within the workflow, you get to call those runbooks. Through the automation server, you then integrate to APM. And within those runbooks have actions, pre-built actions for EPM functions. So it could be calling an APM, which is the endpoint manager of what you're looking at today, maybe a software deployment task for an onboarding process, or maybe a OS provisioning task. All of those are listed in the runbook. So when you create that runbook and you call that runbook from ISM, it will simply go out and start looking for that EPM environment and executing that. So hopefully that helps in answering your question. But I'm sure you probably have more and would like to, if you'd like to have a one-off conversation, I'll be happy to do that with you.
Very good. Thank you, Michael. Great presentation. Folks, just to reiterate that, give us a call at 844-FLYCAST. That's 844-359-2278. Email us at rich.longo@flycastpartners.com or chat live Monday through Friday on our website with our IT specialists, and we'd be happy to get the answers you seek. Those of you that are wanting additional information, after today's webinar, or maybe some private showings of how this tool can work, go ahead and reach out. We'll be happy to get those for you. With that being said, I'm going to thank you for your time today, Michael. Great presentation.
Thank you, Rich. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah. And to our audience, thank you for taking time out of your busy day, and I hope everything went well for those of you that were actually having a lunch with us today. I want to thank you guys, and we'll see you on next week's webinar. Have a great one.